Welcome to the Atlas Learning Teaching Training Activity, Teaching Language Method, the 3 Ps. Gecko Programmes, established in 2009, is a UK-based training provider with a mission to develop organisations and people across the West Midlands in Europe. Gecko offers accredited and non-accredited training for employees, business leaders, or just for individuals seeking new skills as well as for those seeking work. Our focus is to build the skills in alignment with personal and business objectives. We are organised into 3 separate business units: Consulting, Work and Skills, and European. As part of our Work and Skills unit, our ESOL, English for Speakers of Other Languages, Skills for Life courses are offered from entry level 1 up to level 1 and include speaking and listening, reading and writing. Courses run throughout the year, starting in September through to July, with available classes between Monday to Thursday, which take place at the New Hampton Arts Centre in Wolverhampton. The use of the teaching language method, the 3 Ps. Purpose and target group. The presentation practice production method is used to teach English as a second language, but also to enhance the learner's knowledge about the life in the UK. A specific discussion topic is introduced to the learners, in this case the NHS, to teach the use and differentiation of modal verbs in positive and negative sentences to express the idea of obligation. The use of this method has been successful as it's a straightforward and easy to implement teaching technique, predominantly when the learner's education and way of learning can vary from one to another. Our focus group are adults and more specifically women from mixed belief and multicultural backgrounds. The learners are divided into 2 separate level groups of 10 to 15 learners per level, and the classroom is set up in a horseshoe seating plan to make it easier for students to interact as well as to encourage discussion and participation throughout the lesson. An example of a lesson plan would be to start off with a 5-minute warm-up activity introducing the topic used throughout the lesson, and this would be the start of the presentation stage. Thereafter, you can move on to a reading exercise, which shouldn't last more than 8 minutes, by providing students with the material that you have generated specifically for the session to read through and answer a list of comprehensive questions. This would be the final stage of the presentation and the beginning of practice. Continuing on to an additional exercise focused on grammar awareness for 15 to 20 minute duration will allow more time for the students to practice. You provide the students with rules and guidance for this exercise and discuss what kind of verbs they are and when and why do we use them. Then you would allow time for the learners to complete the task. An example task would be to find the differentiation between the uses of specific modal verbs in material provided to them. Continue on with the practice stage, provide the students with a written exercise, 5 to 8 minutes. An example task would be to match the words in bold in these sentences with the given meanings examples. The final task, which allows for students to practice further, would be one focused on obligation. Again, allow 5 to 8 minutes for the task. An example would be for the students to underline the correct alternative to complete the sentences. The final stage of the lesson would be the production stage, which shouldn't last more than 20 to 25 minutes. This is where the students can put in use all they have practiced when completing the tasks given to them throughout the lesson. The teacher would start a discussion and get students to work in pairs or groups depending on the size of the group. And the aim would be for them to use modal verbs during the discussion. It will allow the teacher to assess students and the students to be able to build up their confidence in using modal verbs as well as generally speaking and communicating in English. This is an example material used in the classroom, NHS leaflet. The benefits of using a specific topic to teach. Focusing on one specific topic at a time rather than teaching 3 complicated grammar lessons in one can be more productive. The choice to focus on obligations only using NHS as the material in both positive and negative forms makes the lesson more efficient and the plan flow smoother. The learners over time can distinguish the differences between the concept of the grammar form used in text. Generally, using topics such as NHS is more realistic and likely to appeal to the learners. The NHS system in England is different and can be very confusing compared to some other countries' healthcare services. Therefore, using such topic, it will teach learners the grammar points as well as provide them with information regarding hospitals and NHS systems in England and more cultural and regulation awareness inside the UK. Communication and interaction. Learners can interact, exchange and share ideas with less teacher talking time and more focus shifting towards the learner's ideas and speaking, allowing for more student talking time and therefore improving their communication and interaction skills in English. Objectives and expectations of using the 3P method to teach. Some of the objectives would be to use the modal verbs in positive and negative sentences used to express the idea of obligation, to differentiate between the meaning of the modal verbs in use context and speaking within the topic of NHS health service in both England and their countries, whilst using these modal verbs to express obligation. Gecko expects the learners to become more familiar with the country's values and principles, systems and culture, as well as attitude, but also gain a sense of being part of the community. Then the learners would expect to be able to understand, communicate, and able to read and speak the language. Skills gained by the learners. Enhanced grammar. To help them find the differences between the form and its meaning when we use them in context. Reading for gist, skimming through the text of the NHS advertisements to read what it is about. Reading for details, scanning through the context given to them to answer the comprehensive questions, and developing the speaking. Develop the speech and support them to use target language effectively. To summarize, regardless the method you use to teach an individual language, it is important to always remember as a teacher or a tutor that everyone learns in a different way. You should always challenge, ask questions and share your knowledge, but most of all, learn to adapt. Each method can be adapted for teaching one or more individuals in the same classroom a level at a time, but you can also incorporate more than one method to create an infusion of teaching techniques that will allow for more efficient and productive lesson plan to achieve the ultimate goal of teaching someone a foreign language. Thank you for listening.